afternoon. We are having a little bit of difficulty with the sound. There is a background noise. We're hoping that folks will perhaps mute their phones so that the background noise disappears. Thank you. We thank you for joining us this afternoon as we go through our new unit record report training. With us today is Steve Thorndale, who will be presenting the majority of our training. Also with us, Sarah Larson, who is our data analyst, and I am Ann Voiles. I'm Steve in the training area. Before we get started, I'd like to go over just a couple of little housekeeping items. If you do not have the audio portion of our presentation today, you do have the ability to chat with us. Here in this tab, you see the chat. Down in this area, there is a box where you can type in questions, and we will be monitoring that so that we can respond to you right away. Also, there is, I think, up in the far corner, a Q&A area. If you find that it is difficult to use the chat box, that is another area that we will be monitoring in order to answer any questions. For the majority of our presentation, we will most likely have you as the audience on mute because when we expand our PowerPoint presentation, it does cover our full screen, and that way, if you could hold some of your verbalized questions, we will break periodically in order to answer those for you. Are there any questions right before we get started? Okay, I will turn this over to Steve.
Okay, thank you very much, Ann. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear okay? If you can't, let me know and we'll move up a notch in terms of the volume. So this is one of the most exciting times of the year, I'm sure, for
you are now muted.
To work on their unit record report. And many of you have gone through this before. We appreciate that. We have a few newcomers, and we're very open to questions now or later. So with that, we're scheduled for up to an hour and a half. Typically, we get done sooner than that, but if need be, we'll be around. So Ann mentioned the three of us already, myself, herself, Kara Larson, and Dave Richard. Dave's our senior programmer, just arrived, and has done a great job with setting things up for the system. So as we go through this, we'll go from the general to the more specific, and the purpose of the unit record is to provide rich, important data for the state of Washington to help manage the financial aid programs. It provides institutional reports and profiles for both, say, legislators and colleges. And it really allows us to just really assess the needs and unmet needs of students so that we can help inform policymakers to perhaps where would be good places to put money in the future. And by having one centralized place, i.e. the unit record report, it minimizes the number of ad hoc reports that sometimes institutions get or sectors may get on these types of things. This is approximately the 45th year of this, so there is rich data that the Student Achievement Council has available. So we do have, and we've had this out for maybe 6 weeks now, we have the unit record available electronically. If you haven't gone to our site, we hope you will soon and take a look at that. The timeline is up until August 17th, you can play in the sandbox, and we'll show you how to do that later in terms of if you want to put data in before the real report goes on. But August 17th, we'll open up the report for official submission, and we've got roughly a 7-week period that colleges may finalize their data through the process. So once it's all finalized by you in terms of submission, then we do background reviews, analysis, sometimes get more information from colleges if there were data that appeared to be still questionable, if you will. Our goal is to have this in good shape that we can give information to policymakers, and for our annual report that's produced usually about December. So by getting all of the 14-15 data in the system by then, it really helps everybody out. It will help us out for the legislative session that comes up again next January. Now the actual, what we call the institutional profiles, which compare your data to data of other colleges in your sector and into the whole state, that typically is not available for until the 14-15 year until January. You will be able to, earlier than that, access data from previous years, and we'll show you how to do that a little bit later. So from the manual, the overview, we're not actually going to show the manual up here, but this will pick out certain segments of it that we think deserve some highlighting today. There'll be the general information, general instructions, who to include, things of that nature, data definitions, and Chapter 3, a reporting the application user guide, and we'll go over that in greater detail later. And all of the appendices that kind of help drive the program. The appendices will cover some really important things like how to distinguish between what we consider need-based and non-need-based program recipients, the record layout, file format, valid inputs, the system edits that prevent the file upload, and some quick lookups. If you're looking by program, you can look in Appendix D. If you're looking by field name, you can look at Appendix E. So one of the first things you will do is each year build a new CSV file for submission, and a sample CSV file is on our website right now. If you've reported last year and things went well with your current CSV file, you could use the same headers of that one and just put new data in. But an updated one is in there now if you were starting fresh on that. So you're going to be reporting only students who receive financial aid based upon a 14-15 FAFSA, and in a few cases WASSA that we'll distinguish a bit later. The CSV has to be done in this file format with a header row. It's a very specific, very long file system because we collect data on every term for every program. Whether or not you report data, positive data for all those programs is really depends on the circumstances, but be a lot of zeros in there, but it's really required. So for example, if you had a nursing, did not have a nursing scholarship program, you're going to be putting zeros in a lot of rows. You'll review the field definitions in Chapter 2 of the manual and all the appendices in B and C to determine the valid field contents. So for determining which students to report, certainly any program that requires a FAFSA, you're going to have to report those students if they receive any kind of need-based aid. And a couple slides later will show you the names of programs. And then there are need-based programs that we call need-based, and they may be a little softer, but they're ones that either FAFSA data may or may not be available. And again, may give you some examples of those in a moment. Plus, we need to receive aid on all federal aid recipients, whether or not they were need-based or non-need-based, such as Federal Plus or Grad Plus unsubsidized loans. So it's a big amount, but it could be a subset of all years. So ones that you would not report, for example, would be non-need-based scholarships. Somebody got a dean's scholarship or a trustee scholarship that was the only aid they got, or some other non-need-based program. We don't need that nor want to collect that information. But if they are a needy student and they got that dean's scholarship or something, that would be included as the full complement of aid programs the student receives. So the intent is to capture all financial aid disbursements in this unit record report. And you'll report this year, as I mentioned, everybody who's completed the FAFSA, 14-15 FAFSA. And if you have anybody now, which you will, that you've made aid decisions based upon a 15-16 FAFSA, that data is not reported on this year's. That will be reported on next year's unit record report. So examples of the need-based programs. You could probably recite these all in your sleep out there. Federal Pell Grants, Federal Work Study, Perkins Loan, State Need Grant, of course, College Bound Scholarship, and a few others. The last one there, Need-Based Institutional Gift Aid. So if you require FAFSA for that, report that as Need-Based Gift Aid. Some other programs that are you may or may not have the FAFSA, but we consider these need-based programs if you have them. Federal Teach Grant, I'll pick a few. The Opportunity Scholarship managed by the College Success Foundation. SBCTC Opportunity Grants, Worker Retraining Funds, Need-Based Gift Aid, Institutional Employment, if it's need-based, if you consider it a need-based program. So, let's, did I skip the page here? Let's see. No. We'll go just a couple more, then we'll check on the screen to see if there are any questions. So, if your students are receiving any of the basic food, employment, and training funds, and that's easily reportable from your system, that should be reported as workforce training funds. That question came up last year, and that we have a home for those funds there. And other programs to report, federal non-need-based loans, mentioned that, direct and subsidized, plus, grad plus, and those programs, I mean, that may be all the student has is a non-need-based federal loan. We do need to have that, and the edits are a bit softer for those programs than they would be for kind of the hard need-based programs requiring a FAFSA. So let's unmute for just a moment, and if you will, just see if there are any verbal questions on that. Nobody's in the chat room right now, which means either you understand it all, or maybe if it were me, it might be my afternoon nap time now. Hope not, but any verbal questions? Okay. Hearing none, we're going to go put you back on mute.
You are now muted.
All right, so there are not many changes. And if you're an old-timer to this, that's good. If you're a newcomer, you don't care. You just need to learn about everything. But for the old-timers, page 3 in the manual will give you some information that we are looking for consistency with other WSAC reporting, state need grant, CBS, and passport to college funding will be compared to your final interim report and other portal records by recipient. Now, we did some of that last year, but we're going to do it try to do it even tighter this year to make those as reasonably tight as we can, although you'll see that we do allow a $10 tolerance per student in a certain thing. So if you reported $1,010 and we had $1,020, it would pass the edit. Anything more than $10 off, it will not pass the edits, and you'd have to respond to that. And throughout the manual, we've added the word WASSA in a number of places, and WASSA stands for the Washington Application for State Financial Aid. I hope I'm right on that. Sounds good. Good, sir. So there are other acronyms with WASSA, of course, but for here, this is the separate application we have, primarily for students who are the Dreamer students, or sometimes known as 1079 students, who are applying for a state need grant for the first time last year in 14-15. So if you ever see something that says FAFSA, but student only completed the WASSA, then you'll report that data, things like income, family size, etc., in those fields. And there are a few field rule changes. Maybe for Social Security number, this is more of a clarification, but this be real careful that the data you're providing matches what you provided in the interim report. This has tended not to be a problem with big schools who are very data-driven and have great IT staff to make sure that happens, that you're using the same Social Security number. But we have had a number of problems with smaller institutions that sometimes are doing things more manually. That causes a big challenge for everybody if you provide one Social Security number on a state need grant student on unit record report and a different one for the same student on interim report. So you'll get lots of edits if that happens. So just a word to the wise ahead of time. The more you can make that data just as clean as possible when it comes to us, the easier it is for you as well as for us. So also the second bullet here talks about if something is missing from the unit record but reported in interim report, appears as a difference. So that again, a missing could be one that was a misreported Social Security number, but sometimes we get cases where the data is reported on one but not on the other. That you told us for unit record the student got a need grant, but there's absolutely nothing in the interim report showing the student got a need grant. So that would be an edit that we'd have to have a resolution to that. Same with the college-bound scholarship and the passport. If you have to make any choices from a system point of view in order of preference, you've got several different versions. Certainly if you have the true, real Social Security number, we'd always want that as the first choice. And that's what should be reported on the FAFSA. But as we get primarily in the WASSA territory, that sometimes the student will have reported a 9-digit tax identification number that they have, or there could be a separate WASSA number that was assigned to the student. So the pecking order would be Social Security number first if you have it. If you don't have that, the 9-digit number. If you don't have that, the WASSA number. And Social Security number, students not reported in the interim report, populate the Social Security number with a 9-digit number used in institution reporting. And that again would normally be the Social Security number, but we've had a few cases where institutions will even have a 9-digit institutional number that's different from the others. If there's no FAFSA involved, I guess you could give us a 9-digit number as long as it's a unique number. There may be some that would be thrown out for edits. If you put like 11111 all the way across, that may be thrown out, but other numbers that appear to be more random would probably be acceptable. Year in school, a clarification here that, and we'll have another slide showing all of the codes for year in school, but if you have students that are running start students or not graduated from high school, but somehow you're reporting that information, as happens occasionally, code them as an 8, not as a 1. A 1 would be like a freshman in college or first year in college. So 8 would allow for running start students or other students that are not in a college program already. We have also changed a few of the values to get through the edit system, and this shows in the center column the old values and the new values. So family income, for example, a new value is anywhere from minus $300,000, which nobody hopes they have, unless I guess you got a bad tax problem from one year to another, or up to $600,000. Now that does not mean you could not have somebody more than $600,000. They could. You have to do an edit override, and I explain that later. And you'll see the numbers here. And I want to make a note here. And I know we have Lori from PLU on the phone. I have to give Lori a great credit for the federal Pell Grant here. You'll see here that it shows the old value was 0 to $5,650. Prior to last week, it said the new value was 0 to $5,700. Lori went through our test system and said, Steve, we have so many edits. Something's wrong with your system. And indeed, I failed to get the right number when we put through the edit change. We've now fixed it. Dave fixed it immediately. It's now actually been updated in the manual online. If you happen to have printed the manual prior to this week, it will show the incorrect value. And rather than reprint the whole value, you could just update your pages 3, Roman numeral 3, I think, and 36 to the 5730. So that is the correct maximum value for the Pell Grant. A lot of the values are pretty high, and this allows for a lot of latitude. There are a few schools that are, they do kind of a double reporting in 1 year if they're a borrowing-based year school, and so we had to make those values pretty big to get through a lot of people without lots of edits. So thank you, Lori, for your eagle eyes on that. And if anybody else between now and the 17th of August, when we open the site, goes through the port, it wants to kind of play with the portal to put your data in there. If you see anything else that you think is suspicious or wrong or what, please let me know or one of our other staff, and we'll review it right away. We want this to be as perfect as possible for you. I didn't say perfect as possible, but you know what I mean. All right, so these are a few subtle changes. And so changes for the portal, family income. I don't think this is a change, but report the actual family income amounts even if higher or lower than the system edit amounts. So that does help. We were having some schools that would sometimes reduce their family income levels to the value, and that kind of distorts statistics when we're trying to show like average family incomes and so forth if you simply limit it. So better to put the real numbers and do an edit override if need be. So if somebody had a higher value, that you could do an edit override and just put, for example, actual income was reported on the FAFSA. We would know you looked at it. So I mean, the edits are to catch the really big stuff that you might have, if somebody added an extra 0 or 2, hopefully the edits would catch that for you and get that correct. Need amount, we are asking you again to, if you should come up with, if you do have a negative need in your system, as you might well, adjust those values to 0. If you can't, we'll end up doing it ourselves to be able to make sure that that shows properly in terms of when we run other reports. And this is kind of an early announcement of what we intend to do on the 15-16 unit record on reporting tuition waiver dollars for state need grant college-bound recipients. So we're still working this through, particularly with the community technical college sector, which is they have some have some system challenges on this, but we would greatly prefer that if somebody gets a full or partial tuition waiver, to report that in the waiver item and include a normal cost of attendance to reflect the tuition prior to the application of the waiver, and report waivers as financial aid resource and need-based institutional gift aid or non-need-based institutional gift aid. It's not required that you do it this way until the 15-16 unit record, but if you can, that just helps make the data look a little cleaner even at this stage. See if there are any questions come in on that. Okay. If anybody does have any questions, we'll, even if you want to chat, just put a note that says I want to talk, and we'll open the line up at that point. So our reporting requirements for all financial aid recipients, you have to report the following fields. SSN, first name, last name, gender, are they a state resident, yes or no, year in school, financial aid for each of 5 terms, even if 0 age. So that's where I indicated that the file is a really long one, the CSV file, and there will be a lot of zeros that you have to populate in there for it to get to the edits. And you'll be showing for each of the terms the enrollment status. So report financial aid for each of 5 terms, report enrollment status for 5 terms, and report non-need-based aid received for all need-based recipients. So the CSV file requires the header role, and you report the financial aid for each of the terms. It does say somewhere, do not put pennies in there. It's just dollars you're putting in there. And the 5 fields that we identify, Summer 1, which should be used primarily for leader or header awards, and also for year-round clock hour schools, they'll use Summer 1 frequently. Fall term, could be fall quarter, fall semester. Winter semester schools should normally report as zeros. And spring would be spring quarter or spring semester, second semester. And Summer 2 is used primarily for the trailer awards or for the year-round schools that have clock hours. Next slide. All right. So when to include summer aid in your reporting? Chapter 2 covers this in greater detail, but again, you're reporting the summer aid amounts that were received based upon the 1450-15 FAFSA or WASSA. So in general, if you're a leader or header school, you're going to report Summer 1 aid. So that would be last year. Let's go back 14-15. FAFSA school students went to school the summer of 14. Maybe they got a Pell Grant or a state need grant or college bound. You report that aid for the Summer 1. And you probably don't report anything as Summer 2 because you would have used your normal 12 months up counting the Summer 1. Trailer schools would normally report a Summer 2 aid, and Summer 1 normally is 0. So those of you that are trailers right now on a 14-15 FAFSA, you're making, say, a college-bound scholarship or state need grant again for this summer, as some of you are. For summer 15, your aid would be reported there. If a recipient is enrolled for more than one term in the same summer, report the total amount received and enrollment status as one enrollment term. And my recollection of this from a number of years ago when I was at University of Puget Sound, for example, there were, I think, 3 mini sessions for summer. And so you just have to add those all together and report that as one enrollment period rather than 3 separate ones. Student might have only attended one of the sessions, and that would be the summer period. If they enrolled all 3, you'd add the 3 together. Isn't this exciting and fun? It's been a long time since I've completed one on the campus, but now I'm in my 3rd one here, so I'm having fun here. Fields to also report if they have filed a FAFSA or WASSA. There'll be quite a few other fields, and these are ones that are on there. The marital status, dependency, family size, number in college, family income, expected family contribution, cost of attendance, need duration, need amount. Actually, the need amount is not on the FAFSA, obviously, but it's calculated because of the FAFSA. And the cost of attendance, similarly. So, a few special notes on selected fields. Social Security numbers, no duplicates are allowed. It will not allow you to upload the file if you try that. And Social Security numbers of state need grant and college-bound scholarship recipients will be compared to the Social Security numbers reported in the July final interim report for consistency. And similarly, I mentioned we'll do a passport, but we'll be looking at different portal records. Same concept, though. And any discrepancies will show up on edit reports. And that, I think, was one of the most time-consuming things we had last year, working with colleges on those. So the more correct you can be up front, the better it is for everybody in terms of getting through the file system, file edits. So I wanted to show you the year in school, just what all your options are here. And I covered that part of option 8 before, where I said, if you have a running start student in high school, that you're reporting some aid for that person before they went to college, you would use 8. But you'll see the other first 4 are kind of the traditional first 4 years of college. And a student certainly could be a 1 for 2 years, for example, or a 2 for 2 years, that kind of thing. But we're asking you to report the status as of the beginning of the term of the student's last financial aid disbursement. So that's where maybe the student started out as a year in college 1, and if spring disbursement was their last one and they were a sophomore or 2 status, we want them reported as a 2 at that time. Or if the status changed in the summer and you were a trailer and they moved to sophomore status, you report that as sophomore there. Where this probably becomes the most challenging kind of for the data reviews is when they move from undergraduate status to graduate, but that the same thing holds. That student might have been an undergraduate student for part of the year, and by the time the final term was there, they were a graduate professional. Go ahead and code them as the appropriate one, 6 or 7. And at that point, we can usually figure out, for example, if you put they were a graduate student, but they had a Pell Grant, and we see they had graduate aid, I think we'll figure that one out, and that should get through systems there. All right. So year in school also, do not automatically use the year in school report on the FAFSA or WASSA, because that oftentimes is what will you be during the next year. I will be a freshman, but they may be a sophomore by the time the last disbursement was made. Mention report the highest year in school for which the student attended, and 8 used for running start and others who have not yet graduated from high school. Family size, generally report from the FAFSA or WASSA. Must be 2 or higher for a dependent student to get through the edits. Must be 1 or higher for independent students. And number in college must be 1 or higher. Can't exceed the family size. And parents' enrollment in college should not be included, which is the same way the FAFSA sets it up, unless it was a professional judgment. All of these, there certainly could be a professional judgment on any item that you've made that differs from the FAFSA, but that's your choice to make that. But probably 9 out of 10 times, things are coming right off the FAFSA or WASSA, except as you maybe make a professional judgment decision. So for family income, you're reporting the income taxable and untaxed. That's based upon that review of the FAFSA or WASSA. In most cases, it's going to be the 2013 income. So professional judgment was made, use that income, and report integers without dollar signs or cents. This shows you examples. And for income is really the only place where negative numbers should be used. Yeah, I did tell you there's that one other place you could, and we'll get rid of it, but that was if you showed need as less than 0. That is right mathematically, but we will change it to a 0 for a system. So reporting the expected family contribution. And this is where it sometimes takes a little more thinking this through at the institutional level and make sure you're doing it the way we want it, need it. So often this will be the calculation produced by the U.S. Department of Education, and it may be adjusted by professional judgment. But the last point is it should reflect the number of months reported and the need duration. So what we're looking for is consistency here, that let's take the easy case. Student goes to college for a full academic year. You have a 9-month EFC, a 9-month need, 9-month family contribution, etc. But if you begin to adjust it and you're adjusting everything to 4 months, and you need to adjust the EFC to 4 months and the need duration to 4 months, etc. For cost of attendance, most campuses have several student budgets to choose from to reflect the living expenses, and report the student budget amount related to need should be based on the number of months reported in need duration. So we get to our kind of bread and butter calculation. Cost of attendance minus EFC equals need amount. And so we're saying base all 3 numbers on the number of months reported in need duration. And now there are cases where you may have everything based upon, say, a 9-month need duration. That's great. But you only show aid for 1 term. Maybe the student dropped out or was ineligible for a future term. That is okay. You're consistent then with showing this need equation. So we do not require schools to adjust the budget and the EFC and all that if the student started out as full-time and then went to maybe 1 term. You can do it if you want, and if your system does it, that's fine. But as long as those are all consistent with whatever the budget duration is, that works. All right, let's see here. For need amount, report the amount used in the disbursement of aid, and report the need amount of 0 or higher. Do not report negative values. Normally you report as integers from 1 to 12. The rest I covered. Our term enrollment status. All right, so here we have a couple different versions. Those that are on credit hours would be the second column to the left. Those that are on clock hours would be the second column to the right. And it shows you the codes that you may use, the column on the right. And these are, and anybody that's new, you have to use the exact codes that are in the markers there. So one or the other, not the. So if they're not enrolled, you're going to put either a 0 or say not enrolled. Now full-time, I'll just call it the 1 code, half-time the 2, 3/4, 3, and less than half-time 5. So some have wondered why we came up with such a crazy coding scheme. But it's not necessarily sequential. And at this point, I should build out the song "Tradition" to you, but it's actually it's kind of been built in a number of years ago into Seesaw that this was the way it was set up, and so that we don't change the way you've been reporting to Seesaw for a number of years. This is the sequence that the numbers need to be reported. So nobody's complaining too much. Every once in a while somebody say, why didn't you just go in 1, 2, 3, 4 in some order? So if you use these numbers on the right, or if you just want to use the kind of the name, the full-time or half-time, maybe that will be fine too. Okay. So if you're a clock hours school, and these are the same dates that we have in the state need grant manual, you have to make some choices as to how you break up your aid to fit this term system of 5, and these are the approximate dates, and our college has done a great job of being able to do that. But so this shows you approximately what dates you could use to be able to show your aid in 5 different terms if your students were going to school for that 12-month period of time. For state need grants, you're going to report the final awards received by the student. Mention that the tool checks against the final entry report and also looks at state need grant students not reported to verify that everybody is correctly reported. College-bound scholarship, it's basically the same arrangement there, that we want the 2 reports to be as consistent as possible and as accurate as possible within that small tolerance of $10 a student, but most of you hit it right on the nose, dollar for dollar. State work study, we do have separate fields for on-campus and off-campus reporting. You're reporting the total gross earnings, including the employer match and the institutional share. And if they have summer employment, that's included. So for reporting, you have a couple options to either include the actual gross earnings based upon some type of monthly cutoff dates or institutional payroll dates, or the average gross term earnings over the academic year for all terms for a student who was enrolled at least half-time. That was a request one of the schools made last year, and we were glad to accommodate that. But sometimes it's hard to break it up on the institutional level into smaller chunks. So you could do your own breaking up as long as the gross earnings were properly reported. Institutional gift aid. You have 2 gift aid buckets. Need-based institutional gift aid, where you report all institutional grants, scholarships, or waivers awarded solely or partially upon the review of the 14-15 FAFSA, or you have a non-need-based gift aid, all institutional grants, scholarships, etc., without regard to the FAFSA. So, got to get it one bucket or the other. Now, we have seen a number of colleges, not too many, but where they call the aid they award to a student need-based institutional gift aid, but there's no indication of any kind of a FAFSA or WASSA. We're not absolutely editing that or anything at this point, but from our vantage, we prefer to have it called non-need-based aid if they didn't have the FAFSA. But sometimes I know your own probably pockets of funds you have, you may award them a little differently. So it's a distraction to us, but not a requirement. But make sure it's in one bucket or the other. Thank you. Other state-funded gift assistance. Here are examples. Okay, we're not reported elsewhere. The American Indian Endowed Scholarship that Ann Voles handles. She knows who they are. Gear Up, including funds that may have been provided through CETA or get funds for Gear Up. If you're not sure, what do you suggest, Ann?
They can give me a call.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you have Washington Scholars, there's still a number out there, not too many now, that would be reported. The program is on its way out as far as funds. Most of the students have graduated from college now, but not all. Or the WAVE program, same thing. There could be a few out there. I think we're down to less than a dozen or so for some of these programs. So edits. Once you've properly uploaded a file, it goes through a number of edits. And the edits help ensure data quality. Mentioned they were softened a bit for students receiving only non-need-based federal loans. And FAFSA-related edits are also softened for students not receiving any kind of FAFSA or WASSA required aid types. Edits that prevent the file upload, heading row missing, duplicate SSNs, invalid codes, and there are like 12 items. So that one should be one that hopefully you could figure out. But if you have any questions, give us a call on that. So there are a few non-overridable edit examples. So if you reported somebody, gave us all the data except you said didn't show any financial aid at all, you had zeros in every single item, that file is a non-overridable one. You either have to delete that record or add in financial aid for that student, because we only want information about students who had some kind of financial aid. If you have a non-resident with state need grant or other state aid, that's going to show up as a non-overridable edit. I think every year we find a few students that colleges say, oops, I guess we should not have awarded that state need grant to that student from California. That doesn't happen very often, but it does happen, and it was legitimate, that it was a legitimate error, it had to be fixed on your end. Or it could be that you coded it wrong, they really were from Washington, you've got to fix it to show they were a Washington resident. We want to be able to tell our legislators that only Washington residents got these aid programs for Washington. If you show a number in college greater than the family size, that will be a non-overridable edit as well. Here are some examples of overridable edits, and there are a couple pages worth, 40 to 41. So need amount is 0 with need-based aid. And so that could happen, and you may have updated your system, and this person wrote a note that the budget changed due to dropped credits, but student had received need-based aid. Year in school for aid types, federal grad plus loan, student graduated mid-year. So I might have been, was I wrong, Dave, in terms of saying for those mid-year changes? If this was a graduate student, how would they be reported here? Year in school. They got a graduate plus loan. That would probably be the last term of aid. We report them as a graduate student. They'd get through okay, right? All right. All right. Date of birth outside of normal range. And I think our normal range is from ages, I'm guessing, 14 to 80. So it's not meant to prevent 81-year-olds from going to college, or 12-year-olds if they're really precocious and able to handle the curriculum. You just have to make sure that that really was right. So you just have to say, answer is correct. Cost of attendance minus EFC does not equal the need amount reported by the college. So that's one that you've got to review. That one is overridable. So tips and best practices. Upload your CSV file early. Don't wait till the final deadline. Review the manual and training materials and test the upload using the portal training environment. So here you could go to this today if you wanted to. And the data goes in there. It's held temporarily. It's cleared out overnight, so you can do whatever you want. You can't break anything. And actually, I'm going to actually stop to see if Lori is still on the phone. If so, I'm going to put you on the spot, Lori, and you tell us what fun it was to do that.
You are now unmuted.
So, Lori, unmute yourself and please talk. Are you there, Lori? Still you? All right. I'm sure she had fun. She told me she had fun, so we'll not put her on the spot any longer there. But
you are now muted.
She wrote back the second time and said it was much easier after we fixed that Pell Grant edit problem for her. But truly, particularly if you're a new school or a new administrator, haven't done it before, this would be a good way to kind of gain some confidence that you can get through without having too many edits, or to, the file uploads can be just as challenging to make sure you've got your data file all set up right with the right header and SSNs and stuff like that. So use the informational reports to check for consistency and validity. You'll see at the end of the line there are some reports that you could run before you even submit it. And you might run a report and you might, from a high level, look to say, boy, my student loans shouldn't be that low. Maybe you reported 1,000 last year, students getting it. This year it shows 200. That would probably show that you had something wrong. It wasn't picking up right. And so those can be good high-level ones to be able to look at the reports, because we have a comparison one that will show you the data that you've put in so far for 14-15 compared to the previous 3 years. It goes program by program and totals and so forth. So it's really quite slick. Dave did an excellent job of that, and can help you with making sure you have really good data. The CTCs, there will be another special session. We have a few online now, and that's great, but there will be another special session later this month where Becky Phillips will join us. At that point, she will have put out her annual SBCTC Unit Record Report Manual as well, and that works specifically with systems for the CTC section. And by all means, contact us with any questions or problems not addressed in the manual, or suggestions, particularly as you go through it, probably suggestions for the next year. Once we get into it, we can't make any major changes, but we can certainly put them on the list for discussion for the next year. So, with that in mind, we're now moving to Ann, who's going to spend a little bit of time going through the web application. Ann?
Thank you, Steve. Okay. I think most of you may be familiar with the portal process already. However, we have here at the top of the slide our web address for the portal, https://fortress.wa.gov/WASSAC/portal, and then the final slash. Once you come to the that home page, you would log in as normal. You use your email address. In that first box, it's a little bit yellowed. And then in the white box, you would put in your password and then click the login key.
And there may be a few names of folks on the call today. Most are definitely in the unit record report system. It turns out you can't get into that for some reason. Talk to your director there about adding permission for you to be in there, or if that doesn't work, give me a call and we can make sure that we work something out for you.
Thank you, Steve. Okay, once you have logged into the portal, you will see along the top menu bar the word Programs. Click on that. It should bring you a drop-down box. Unit Record is an option there. You would click on Unit Record. That will take you to our welcome screen, and the next thing you would do is click on Proceed to Upload, where I show the orange arrow. Now, if that happens the very first time you're in, if you don't have a file already loaded that you're working on, if you've already been in the portal submitting and working on edits, it will take you to whatever current step you're working on, whether it's ready to begin, in progress, or submitted. Okay. The next screen you will see, it will ask you to browse your PC for a file and then click Upload. As that file is uploading, you'll see a progress bar over actually to the top. I've just enlarged it and placed it here off to the side so you can see what it looks like. But it gives you a sense of how far along the portal is in processing that upload. Okay. The next screen you'll see, if you have errors that prevent the file from uploading, you will have this pop up on your screen. What you'll see, however, is that it tells you exactly where your errors are. If you see a row number, then the name of the error, you'll be able to identify what items in your file need to be corrected and then resubmitted. When you get this, you might want to print that screen so you know what the problems are, and then you would click Discard File. So that will just clear it out of the portal altogether. Once you've made your corrections, then you would go back through that initial process where you browse your PC and then upload the new file. Okay. Now, once your file has been uploaded and processed, you'll see a File Upload Complete message and a summary of the student data, the number of rows, and then the breakout by enrollment or class status. The next thing you do is just click the Proceed to Edits. Now, this step may take a little while to complete. It will pop up with some initial edits. It may still be processing. If you see a refresh button, it does mean that your edits are still being processed. You can click that refresh button in order to bring up additional edits so that you finally have a complete file. When you're processing your edits, you can filter them. There is a drop-down box. Currently, I've got a circle around where it says filter by edit type. The edit types that they're talking about are shown on the screen just below those, also encircled. The Social Security number, student ID, student name, the type of error, or whether it's overridable. One of the things I want to point out here is in this overridable column that, there's my cursor, these are overridable. If you see a stop sign, a red mark like this, this is a non-overridable error. It absolutely has to be corrected or changed before the file will be processed when you try to do a final submit. Okay. As I mentioned in the last screen, all the non-overridable edits must be fixed, and all the overridable edits may be fixed, or you can choose to indicate a reason why there is a difference. In order to make the edit of the student data, you would click on the Social Security number that shows on the far left-hand side of that table. Okay, this is an example of the student record. I have that orange arrow pointing to the error that would have shown on the previous table. You see right next to it is a button that says override. So this is an error that can be overridden rather than changed. If it is something that you want to change, you can click that button. It'll bring up a box. If it's something that does need to be corrected, you see two tabs there. One would be the student demographics and need. The other is student aid. If you don't find the error in this page, then you would just click on this second tab in order to bring up the award detail. Okay. If you're, in this particular case, the error is student not enrolled, and you see that we've clicked the student aid tab. The enrollment status is a drop-down so that you can then select and correct whatever that status should be. If it's not incorrect, you need to go down that column and see where there may be a dollar amount filled in that should be brought to zero. As you're making any corrections, you want to be sure that you click the Save button before you exit the screen, and that would be this button down here. Okay. If you're overriding, you've clicked that little button that says Override. What you see there on the far left is the box where you can enter your override comment. Be sure that you click Save in order for that to remain in the record. Once you've made that comment, you can check to see that it was accurately documented by hovering your cursor over that little blue eye icon. And then the error message or the override message that you've placed in there should pop up so that you can see that. Okay? Okay. As Steve mentioned earlier, all aid must be reported by term. If it's not an applicable term, it should be shown as a not enrolled. As I showed you in one of the previous screens, that is a drop-down box. so that you can change that if need be. If it is a not enrolled, all of those boxes in that column below it should be 0. The other boxes, the 3 boxes that show just underneath that status, are examples of the types of programs that you would be completing that enrollment status for. Okay. Occasionally you'll find that there is missing data, and the way you would check for that is to click on that edit page, the button that shows, shows State Need Grant, College-Bound Scholarship, Passport to College Discrepancy Report. If you click on that, it should bring you the next report. This is an example for Passport to College. In this particular case, you see that the passport payments from the portal show nothing, blank. Unit record has been reported at $1,500. The difference is $1,500. In this particular case, and this is a new feature, when you have already addressed a discrepancy in that original edit table, it will show that you have already addressed it with a Y. If this is blank, it means that you need to go back in and edit that student record. It will, this is being done so that you can quickly see what does or does not need to be addressed whenever you're working in that file. Okay. If there are any other discrepancies, you may find that you have several, and it's easier to work from a CSV file rather than directly from the screen. You can download that file by clicking on the button that says Download Differences to CSV. That way you can quickly scan and see all of your data that needs to be addressed in one page rather than having to go from page to page to page here. Okay. If all you're doing is adding missing data to an existing record that's reported in the unit record, you would go back up to that top menu bar, click on Unit Record, and then click Search to locate and edit that student record. And I showed you earlier what that student record looks like. Now, occasionally you may find that the discrepancy report shows that perhaps the interim report has data where you have requested funds for a student, but that student record is missing from the unit record upload. In this case, you want to add an entirely new record to the report. And you find that little button right there where the orange arrow shows, says Add New Unit Record to the report. Once you've clicked that, it will bring up a blank form as shown here, and you would need to fill out both tabs of information, fill it out as thoroughly and completely as possible with the information for that student. Remember at the end to click Save, otherwise it will just disappear. It will just clear it from the screen. Okay. Once all of your errors have been fixed or overridden, you will see here there is a message that says all edits have been addressed. You may submit your report. At that point, you would click on this underlined area here. It is the Submit button, and that will at least preliminarily submit your information into the permanent portal. At that point, you'll see another summary report, and you can just take another look, make sure that the numbers of students and the breakouts look correct. If they all are correct, then you can click the Submit Unit Record button, and that would be your final submit. Once you have clicked that, you are not able to retrieve that information or make additional changes to that report unless you contact one of the council staff members that are on the unit record team, and they can then unsubmit your report, which would then allow you to either clear the, toss that record altogether or make additional changes for a second resubmit. Okay, Steve?
Okay, thank you very much, Ann. Appreciate that. We're about at the end, and if there should be any comments from the group, let's at least unmute. And as we wait for a second, here's contact information for
You are now unmuted.
us, the mainstays in terms of reviewing the reports. We're shielding Dave. Dave will be called into action if need be. We've got lots of other IT projects as well. So Ann will be our main person this year in terms of reviewing reports. Kara will assist, and I'll work with both of them and with you all as well. So we are very appreciative of your being here today. This may not be the most exciting report you have, but it's, as you know, a necessary one, and colleges have done a great job, and we expect you will too. So we thank you very much, and feel free to call us. Okay, bye.